Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Kristen Welker in Washington, where we are following multiple breaking news stories, beginning with the FBI searching the home of former top Trump national security advisor turned vocal Trump critic John Bolton. The FBI entered Ambassador Bolton's Maryland home early this morning as part of what a source familiar with the matter calls a national security investigation related to the handling of classified materials and the use of classified documents and leaks to the news media. That search extended to Bolton's office in downtown Washington, where agents were seen leaving with boxes. The FBI describing both scenes as, quote, court-authorized activity, meaning a judge likely signed off on the searches. Ambassador Bolton was seen returning to his home this afternoon. A source close to him believes the raid was in response to his frequent criticism of the Trump administration, including in his book, The Room Where It Happened. It's retribution, pure and simple, the source said. Earlier today, I sat down exclusively with Vice President J.D. Vance, who denied the investigation was politically motivated, offering the administration's most extensive comments yet about the incident. Take a listen. I do want to start with some breaking news. We've learned that the FBI is searching the home of former Ambassador John Bolton, his office as well.
Sure.
Can you tell me, why is the FBI raiding Ambassador Bolton's home and office, and did the White House get a heads up?
Well, so we're in the very early stages of an ongoing investigation into John Bolton. I will say we're going to let that investigation proceed. What I can tell you is that unlike the Biden DOJ and the Biden FBI, our law enforcement agencies are going to be driven by law and not by politics. And so if we think that Ambassador Bolton has committed a crime, of course, eventually prosecutions will come. But as you know, Kristen, this is all part of gathering evidence, trying to understand something that we're worried about. And of course, I'll let the FBI comment on the next stage of the investigation.
What's at the root of this? Is this about classified documents?
Well, again, I'll let the FBI speak to that. Classified documents are certainly part of it, but I think that there's a broad concern about Ambassador Bolton. They're going to look into it. And like I said, if there's no crime here, we're not going to prosecute it. If there is a crime here, of course, Ambassador Bolton will get his day in court. That's how it should be. But again, our focus here is on, did he break the law? Did he commit crimes against the American people? If so, then he deserves to be prosecuted. As
we have this conversation, has Ambassador Bolton been detained, taken into custody, arrested in any form?
So this news just broke this morning, and the FBI, I haven't talked to the FBI this morning. I don't know the answer to that question. I assume that he hasn't been detained and won't be detained until there's an actual prosecution, if that actually happens.
As you know, Ambassador Bolton is a frequent critic of President Trump's. He's also on Kash Patel's enemies list. The administration has already revoked his security clearance, Secret Service protection. Is Ambassador Bolton being targeted because he's a critic of President Trump?
No, not at all. And in fact, if we were trying to do that, we would just throw out prosecutions willy-nilly like the Biden administration DOJ did, prosecutions that later got thrown out in court. If we bring a case, and of course we haven't done that yet, the Department of Justice has not done that yet, we are investigating Ambassador Bolton, but if they ultimately bring a case, it will be because they determine that he has broken the law. We're going to be careful about that. We're going to be deliberate about that, because we don't think that we should throw people, even if they disagree with us politically, maybe especially if they disagree with us politically. You shouldn't throw people willy-nilly in prison. You should let the law drive these determinations, and that's what we're doing.
But you know, a lot of people have already looked at this and said, this looks a lot like retribution. Is this retribution?
Well, who has said it looks a lot like retribution, Kristen? A lot of people who tried to throw Donald Trump in prison for completely fake charges that were later thrown out by multiple different courts. I suspect that if the media and the American people let this case actually unfold, if they let the investigation unfold as it's currently doing, they're going to find out that what we're doing is being very deliberate and being very driven by the national interest and by the law here, and that's as it should be.
And you can catch much more of my exclusive interview with the vice president on Meet the Press this Sunday. President Trump was asked by reporters this afternoon about Vance's comments to me, and the president said he hadn't been briefed by Attorney General Pam Bondi. Look.
Well, I haven't spoken to Pam and the group yet, but I will be. I saw that just like everybody else. I try and stay out of that stuff. I'm allowed to be, and I'm chief law enforcement officer, believe it or not. You know, I don't like to go around saying that, but I am. That's the position. But I purposely don't want to really get involved in it. I'm not a fan of John Bolton. I thought he was a sleazebag, actually. And he suffers major Trump derangement syndrome, but so do a lot of people, and they're not being affected by anything we do. I don't know anything about it. I just saw that. I'll find out about it.
In additional note, this is not the first time Mr. Bolton has been investigated over classified information. After he left the first Trump administration, the Department of Justice launched a criminal investigation into the former national security advisor. The DOJ also tried to stop the publication of his memoir, which was highly critical of the president's approach to national security. Both cases were ultimately dropped under President Biden's Attorney General, Merrick Garland. Joining me now is senior White House correspondent Garrett Haake. NBC News Chief Justice and National Affairs correspondent Kelly O'Donnell is with me on set. And also with me, attorney Mark Zaid, who specializes in national security and government investigations. Thanks to all of you for starting us off on this very busy news day. Garrett, let me start with you. The president there speaking to reporters. In fact, it was multiple times today that we heard from him about John Bolton. What are you hearing? What's the very latest from the White House on this search?
Well, Kristen, no definitive word from the White House yet on whether the president has had that conversation with Pam Bondi or any other Justice Department officials about that search of Bolton's home today. I think it's reasonable to presume that he has, given it's been a couple of hours now since that Oval Office spray. He knows this is top of mind. He's probably seen a significant amount of the coverage about it on television. I have been asking in a persistent and perhaps slightly annoying way to my sources at the White House to find out if that conversation has happened. But I think, you know, the interview with J.D. Vance illustrates the point that the White House knows to some degree they own this and they're going to have to defend it, whether the president keeps his distance from it in comments like those he made in the Oval Office today or not.
It was notable, Garrett, when I asked the vice president about the search at John Bolton's home, at his office. He said that part of this has to do with classified documents, but he said there are broader issues as well. Those issues have not been revealed to the public yet, and the vice president certainly didn't go into any detail. But of course, it comes against the backdrop, as we all know, of this incredibly fraught relationship between President Trump and his former national security advisor, Garrett.
Yeah, and this is part of the challenge that the White House is going to have, is to disentangle what may become a criminal case here. We haven't seen any warrants. We haven't seen any charges. We don't know, as J.D. Vance said, how far the Trump DOJ will take this. Having to disentangle the evidence from the commentary you just heard from the president, you know, in the way that he does. When he hears a name of someone that he doesn't like, he will seize on that regardless of sort of the general direction of the question. He called John Bolton a lowlife. He said he's not a very smart guy. Bolton was on television last night, in part criticizing, in part actually praising the president's handling of some of these issues around Russia and Ukraine, separating the president's personal feelings about his former national security advisor from whatever evidence may be produced against him will be critical to how this plays publicly, given the amount of time and energy the White House has tried to put into this idea that they are somehow de-weaponizing the Department of Justice. They are already being very aggressively accused of weaponizing it exactly in the other direction, again, and that's something they're going to have to deal with day in and day out as this progresses.
That's absolutely right. And on that note, let me turn to Kelly O'Donnell. Kelly, speaking about what has been the public appearance of this, we know that top officials at DOJ are actually posting on social media about this. Let me read you a little bit of what we saw today, including from Kash Patel, who wrote, "No one is above the law, and America's safety isn't negotiable. Justice will be pursued always." I believe that one was by Pam Bondi. What's the latest that you're hearing from the DOJ?
Well, certainly we will be waiting to see if there is a point where these key documents that are derived from the search, where there's an inventory of what may have been removed, where there is more explanation of what was the probable cause that went to a court to get this court authorization. Will any of that be unsealed and made available? If so, that will give us a lot of the answers we're looking for. So at this point, all we know is that it is related to classified materials. It is described to me by sources as being a concern about releasing information to news media. Obviously, John Bolton has been in government for a very long time, but has been out of government for a period of time. You referenced the book. That was one part of what might be a constellation of events here. He wrote a book. High-level officials have to get that cleared for classified information before publication. He claims he followed that process. The first Trump administration sued to try to stop it. Ultimately, that did not go forward. The book is out. And he is now saying, and you indicated from sources you've talked talked to, this notion of retribution. He's been asked about that. We'll have to see what the steps are. It was notable to me in your interview with the vice president how he referred to we, as in the administration. Often you would have in the past distance between the White House and the Department of Justice and the FBI. He was careful about saying that Bolton would have his day in court if it gets to a point where there are charges filed. Again, that has not happened yet. But he also embraced this as being very much an investigation of the Trump administration looking at John Bolton.
The tone was incredibly fascinating. Kelly, zoom out for us. Of course, we all saw the images throughout the day. You had the FBI vehicles outside of former Ambassador John Bolton's home, his office. What do those types of searches typically look like? What do they entail?
Well, they can be very broad in terms of their access to all of the nooks and crannies of one's office or one's home. We heard the president today talking about the search at Mar-a-Lago that affected his family, where he referenced his son Barron, his youngest child, his wife having her personal drawers and closets looked at. That kind of thing could happen in the Bolton case. If you're looking in the office, obviously there are computers, there are electronics. Those are always of high interest, looking in file cabinets. Those are the things we would typically expect to see. If they're looking for classified information, they're looking for things that could demonstrate that he may have possessed that, if in fact that is what they find, and any situations where there might be information that could fill out this suggestion that this is related to leaking this information to news media.
All right. Well, we'll continue to track it very closely. Kelly O'Donnell, thanks so much for being here, bringing us all of your reporting and expertise. And Garrett Haake, thank you for joining us from the White House.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.